Kid Cudi's Intergalactic is a highly ambitious multimedia experience that features a full-length album as well as a full-length feature film that was recently released on Netflix. However, what if I were to tell you that there's some lessons that you can take from this to make your story theory stronger in your own projects?
Oh shit! You trying to go now? Alright, give me a minute to get it together.
Intergalactic is a very ambitious project brought to you by Kid Cudi and Kenya Barris. It features amazing voice acting from the likes of Jessica Williams, Timothy Chalamet, and Kid Cudi himself. The story itself is based off of a typical love story that finds Kid Cudi basically choosing between two women that have played a very important role in his life. However, Intergalactic actually exposes a problem that we often see with projects like this. This is typically projects where the person starring in it is also the person directing it and basically the main creative engine behind it. You see, the main character of the story, Jabari, doesn't really have a lot of problems. And when it comes down to it, conflict is one of the most important driving factors when it comes to story theory. Now, this is not to say that Intergalactic doesn't have its conflict. In fact, I would say that the relationship between Jabari and the other character, Meadow, is actually a very great relationship, and there's some very loving and touching moments throughout the story.
Oh, such an angel.
However, there is no driving narrative or motivation for Kid Cudi to make any of the actions that he does in this movie. In fact, you can actually say that everything happens to him and he doesn't make any choices himself to cause the movie to be moving forward. A perfect example of this is when Kid Cudi is actually on a date with his ex and they're in the alleyway taking photos and he's showing her his Mr. Rager art. Now, typically in this scene, a character like Kid Cudi would actually be the one to make the move and talk to the lady and, try to kiss the girl. However, Kid Cudi actually doesn't do much in this scene.
Oh, you're on Stush?
Just take the picture.
Jabari's character is extremely passive. He kind of just lets things happen. He lets the other characters kind of control the scenes, and he's mostly kind of like an avatar for people watching this movie. And this is understandable, and this is not something that I'm necessarily against. However, going back to story theory, there is no driving narrative or any reasons why Jabari is in the situation that he's in. We as the audience have no idea how or why he's even in this situation to begin with. Why did he and his ex break up? This is actually never even explained. This could have been a very important factor as to why Jabari makes the decisions that he makes in this movie. But we never actually get that, so it's not actually really clear as to why Jabari is making any decisions that he does. For example, when you're having a chick that's attractive as Carmen, who's very interested in you, the only reason that you don't want to date them is because they're your ex? That needs to be explained a little bit more in the film so we can have a better understanding why Jabari is making the actions that he makes. Another example of this is when Jabari meets Meadow. Now, once again, in a typical story theory format, the character would be the one that makes the move and makes the decision to, ask the girl out on a date and start the relationship. However, once again, we see Jabari being passive in the sense that he meets Meadow but doesn't really do anything about it. And it's her that knocks on the door and has a conversation with him and continues the movie.
So, what's your name? Neighbor.
Jabari.
Nice to meet you, Jabari. I'm Meadow.
Another way to think about what I'm trying to tell you guys is that Jabari as the main character is responsible for being the driving force and the driving action of the narrative. However, we see multiple times throughout this film that other characters are pushing Jabari in a certain direction to do whatever he needs to do. Another prime example I can think of is the whole concept behind his Mr. Rager graffiti. Now, it's told to us in the film that Mr. Rager is a character that Jabari uses as his graffiti when he's just going around and tagging the city, and they eventually turn this character into a comic book. Now, this isn't really explained in the movie as to why Jabari even created Mr. Rager or what Mr. Rager means to him. They do have a couple of sequences that feature Mr. Rager, but to be honest, this more just feels like a glorified music video than anything else. We don't get any real conversations or any real character points that make us understand why Jabari even created Mr. Rager in the first place. And it seemed that if though Mr. Rager was going to be a point of conflict for Jabari, but rather it just ended up being kind of a visual set piece instead of something that could have been extremely important to the storytelling element of this narrative. Another factor about this film that I'm not necessarily a fan of is the good old Bechdel test. Now, for those of you not in the loop, the Bechdel test is basically when any two women are on a screen at any given point in time, they only talk about men or sex. In this movie, unfortunately, it fails. All the women talk about in this movie are, oh, how hot this guy is, or how hot Jabari is, or how they need to get dick, etc., so forth. And it's a little over the top.
Literally, all I wanted to do was bone. I mean, right there, hanging from the incinerator door, just wild, wet.
Sloppy, choking. Oh, like right up to the point of losing consciousness.
Especially with the female protagonist, Meadow, who is introduced to be the spiritual, quote-unquote, woke vegan who basically is independent and has her head on her shoulders. However, we don't get much character development from her. So when we have the turning point in the movie where she discovers the text from Jabari's ex, she just turns into a basic typical female character that you see in these rom-coms. We never get any real reason as to why she feels the way she does. As a matter of fact, it's never really actually explained. Was she cheated on in the past? Did she have some type of trust issues? Did she just not like people calling your phone at 2 o'clock in the morning? I mean, I understand that. But none of this really explains. She's just upset. And honestly, this is another one of those situations where Jabari's character, because of the fact that it was created by Kid Cudi and Kenya Barris with a sense of a halo around it, for lack of better words, there really is no flaws to Jabari's actions. He's able to, quote-unquote, whisk the girl back away just by drawing a Mr. Rager graffiti on a billboard. This concept betrays typical story theory in the hero's journey. Why is Jabari even making these actions? Because he's in love? The only thing that we really know about Jabari in this film is that he really likes to smoke weed and that he's a graffiti artist. And throughout the hour and a half that this project presents, there's not really a lot that I can take from it other than the fact that it's Kid Cudi. Now, to me, this actually explains a lot as to why Intergalactic was turned into a movie and not the original planned TV series. You see, the thing about TV series is that when you place a character in the world, you have to see how that character basically interact with that world in a way that allows the character to evolve and develop basically ongoing until they decide to end the show. We don't see any of that in this particular piece that we see. And it barely works as a movie because there's not even a typical inciting incident or 3-act structure. To be honest, Intergalactic basically feels like a visual album to accompany his musical album, Intergalactic. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, but I do think that this is a misstep in the sense that they could have did a lot more with this concept of a graffiti artist turning into a comic book star, focusing on Jabari going through these changes as he tries to adapt to this brand new world. Unfortunately, we didn't see any of that in Intergalactic. Now, with that said, Intergalactic is extremely enjoyable in the sense that the visuals are out of this world and the music is solid. It's Kid Cudi, he does his thing on that. But if you're looking for something with a lot of meat and story theory and, plot progression and character development, this might not be the project for you. But I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on Intergalactic. Did you enjoy the film? Did you think the story was okay? How about the voice acting? I thought the animation was actually pretty good. No complaints there. But once again, I'm a storyteller, so I like to pick and prod at the things that kind of bother me a little bit. Anyways, let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments what you think about Intergalactic. I'll respond if I feel like it, maybe not.
Love is the easiest thing in the world when it happens by accident, but it doesn't get real until you do it on purpose.
Anyways, I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow if you want to see more. Once again, a bunch of people watching these videos are watching them but not subscribing. It makes me really, really sad. It makes me feel like you guys don't love me. Which is fine, I don't love y'all anyways. But I figure if you're coming back to my page to check out my other videos, you might as well hit that subscribe button. And go ahead and hit that dumbass bell too. I don't really know how the bell works, but you should hit it because that's what everybody else is saying. And I guess that's the important part of the subscribing part. I'm making you guys click twice. My bad. Anyways, we're almost to 500 subscribers, which is crazy. We've gone up by 200 subscribers in the last couple weeks. I really appreciate everybody who's been, subscribing to the page. So thank you guys for doing that. And we are still on that quest for 1,000 subscribers. We are looking to release this Spider-Man video that I've been working on. It's a pitch for Spider-Man 4 from the MCU featuring Tom Holland. It has all kinds of juicy characters, and I don't want to really talk about it, honestly. You'll just have to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys later.